earthquakes and tidal waves in this, the last in our series, Savage Earth.
Between Java and Sumatra lies the most famous volcano in the world, Krakatoa. When it erupted in 1883, the explosion was heard more than 2,500 miles away. 36,000 people died. But it wasn't ash or lava that killed them. They were killed by the sea. The eruption destroyed the very island on which Krakatoa had stood. Today, a new volcano is growing. They call it Anak Krakatoa, son of Krakatoa. Its presence a smoking reminder for the people just across the Sunda Straits of what may happen to them again. When Krakatoa blew, a gigantic tidal wave swept away hundreds of villages along the coast. In this village, the mosque was the only building left standing. This man's grandfather was the only survivor.
People were screaming, "Ah! Help! Help!" There were people struggling all over the place, and only my grandfather survived because he was impaled on a bamboo. The water was rushing past him backwards and forwards, and his head was cut by a bamboo, but he survived.
The explosion of Krakatoa had unleashed one of Earth's most sinister killers, a tsunami. People call them tidal waves, but they have nothing to do with the tides. The Krakatoa tsunami reached 135 feet, 2/3 the height of the new lighthouse. It wiped out everything and swept debris half a mile inland. Today, this brick base is all that remains of the old lighthouse by the sea.
The old lighthouse was made from red bricks. When Krakatoa erupted, the lighthouse collapsed, and then the bricks ended up here in the river. Can you imagine how powerless people were in the face of the tsunami if it could do this to the lighthouse?
A tsunami is born when an eruption like Krakatoa or an earthquake under the sea creates gigantic ripples. Like the ripples in a pond, these spread ever outwards. In mid-ocean, the ripples of a tsunami cannot be seen. They travel swiftly through the water, only a few feet high, but moving at an astonishing 500 miles an hour. Sometimes as much as half an hour apart, the ripples pass silently, virtually undetectable across the sea. But as the tsunami makes landfall, they change. First, the sea may withdraw. Then, as successive ripples of energy reach the shore, the waves slow down, rise up, and flood inland, one after another. In 1946, 159 people were to die here in Hawaii from a tsunami born 2,500 miles away off Alaska. It was 7 in the morning on April the 1st. In her elegant house on the cliff top with its panoramic view of Hilo town and its wide bay, Kapua Hiwa was making breakfast for her family.
I was in the kitchen and my daughter Barbara come running in and she says, "Mom, why is there no water in Hilo Bay?" I said, "What do you mean there's no water in Hilo Bay?" So I dropped what I was doing in the kitchen, walked out here, and we looked, and this mammoth wave, like the whole across the harbor here, big wave was just going out, just piling up, going out. And you could see these fish jumping on the bottom of the ocean where there's no water. And coming in inside was another wave, much bigger. We estimated it was 20 or 30 feet, just a mountain of ocean moving. Because the outgoing force was not as strong as the incoming force. And when they collided, it just rolled it back with a terrific roar going on in.
It was 5 hours after the massive Alaskan earthquake that the first of 8 terrible waves of energy reached Hilo. Up the Hawaiian coast, at the small village school at Lapahoihoi, 4 young teachers shared a wooden cottage by the shore. "21-year-old Marsu McShane and her friends were intrigued by the series of unusual waves and the fish stranded each time the sea withdrew. Their pupils thought it was the best April Fool's Day ever.
Everybody was enjoying it, and the kids, of course, thought, we won't have school, you know, let's catch some fish and everything. And it made tidal wave all day, for all we know. How many has been? 6 or 7, you know? And then I thought, why doesn't somebody take a picture? So I was the only one who had a camera, and I said, famous last words. I hope it's a big one this time. And as you see, a wave sort of coming in, well, it just came in and got bigger and bigger, and it never did dissolve and go back. And that was the first time it occurred to anybody that there was danger. And I dropped the camera and tried to run through the house, and the cottage just collapsed. And I can remember turning back at the windows in the front of the living room, and the water was just fighting like that, this bubbly water. And the cottage just dissolved. And I had Helen Kingseed was hanging on my arm, and she was just sucked out away. Faye and I crawled up, and we sat on the comb of the roof. And we were just riding this roof, and then it began to suck out again. And it was very fast. And hanging onto the corner of the roof was Dottie, and she just, you know, panic-stricken. And Faye and I sat there, and then we went out and we went clunk and got caught on one of those rocks, which we knew were out there. And the roof went scrunch, and it stopped, and the waves sucked out even more. And so we looked at it, and I said, our only hope is to go climb off this roof and come up and run up to the school while it's sucking out again. And of course we got from about here to there, and the tidal waved again and went down, and that was the end.
10 hours later, Marsu was found clinging to a floating door. Her 3 friends, Helen, Dorothy, and Faye, were never seen again.
Danny Acciona was the one who woke us up in the morning to tell us to watch. Dorothy Drake was one of the teachers living with me. Faye Bird Johnson, the one from Virginia. Helen Kingsey. Fred Cruz was a science teacher. Seishi Nakamura, one of my students. And Jitsumi Yamamoto, also one of my students. And of course, I might have recognized the others.
If only there had been a warning, none of them need have died. They had only to cross the baseball field to reach higher ground and safety. Today in Hawaii, 1 million people live on the beachfront. They think they know and understand the ocean. But this is still a dangerous place to be. There are more earthquakes around the Pacific Rim than anywhere else on Earth. And when the Earth ruptures anywhere around this rim, Hawaii is in the path of the tsunamis. The Hawaiian Tsunami Warning Center was set up immediately after the tragedy in 1946. 24 hours a day, it monitors the Earth's heartbeat. It takes the first pulse from an earthquake thousands of miles away, just minutes to reach the seismograph in Hawaii. Now they must find out where the earthquake is. Only then can Mike Blackford and his team work out if and when a tsunami may arrive.
What do we have, Bob?
Looks like it's from the southeast.
What do you think?
Yeah, logging into NEIC. Looks large.
Let's take a look at the trace over there. Yeah, it looks like the traces in Southern California are pretty big. They're clipping off scale. Looks like they've been off scale about, 5 minutes or so or more now.
The team now know that the waves are on their way. But how big are they? The size of the earthquake is crucial. The larger the earthquake, the greater the danger of a damaging tsunami.
I don't think we got a great earthquake, but it's probably up there some.
The location of the earthquake identifies at what distance the threat is and how long a wave would take to reach the Hawaiian shore.
We get 13 degrees south, 77 west.
The location is about minus 80, 113. So that puts it just offshore of Lima.
It will take the tsunami almost exactly 10 hours to reach Hawaii from the earthquake off Peru. Plenty of time for people to clear the beaches and get to higher ground, if they will just pay attention to the warning.
This is the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. This is a bulletin for all areas of the Pacific Basin. A tsunami warning and watch are in effect. A tsunami warning is in effect for Chile, Peru, Ecuador, and Colombia.
Later that day, the tsunami did reach Hawaii as predicted. But it was just a few inches high, and no one on the beach realized that they had just experienced the faintest echo of the tsunami disasters that will one day surely come again.
And sooner or later, we're going to have an event that's going to sweep across the Pacific and do some damage. One thing that's significant about that is in the last 30 years, with the development of beachside resorts and the like, there are a lot more people who are now exposed to the effects of a tsunami than existed a generation ago.
Sometimes there is no time for warnings. If the undersea earthquake is close to shore, there may be only minutes to react. In Japan, more than 30,000 people have died in tsunamis in this century. Most of them were caused by earthquakes close to Japan, for the Earth's crust here is cracked and fractured under enormous stress. This is Okushiri, an island off the coast of northern Japan. People here earn their living from the sea. They fish for squid and sea urchin. Their homes are within a stone's throw of the shore, where their fishing boats are moored. Today, all over Japan, they are remembering the dead. On Okushiri, they remember one night in particular, July the 12th, 1993. In the space of 8 minutes, 2 tsunami waves swept away 2/3 of their village, killing 112 of their friends and family. 76-year-old Chieko Yamazaki lost her husband and the son and daughter-in-law with whom they shared their home. They were a fishing family, and fishermen are used to the dangers of the sea and the power of stormy waves. But this July evening was still and calm. There was nothing to warn them of the forces that were building deep beneath the ocean floor. It was after 10, and Chieko and her family were already in bed. Suddenly, they felt an earthquake. Everyone in Japan knows that an earthquake may mean a tsunami. But no one on Okushiri Island could know that the epicenter of this earthquake was only 35 miles away. They had just 4 minutes to get out and run to high ground.
Outside, my late son was shouting, "Grandma, hurry up, hurry up." He tried to escape by car. I think he wanted to give us a lift, fearing that a tsunami was coming soon. But it took me some time to struggle to get my husband dressed. Then there was a roaring sound, and that was it.
Every tsunami is different. Here, there was no withdrawing of the sea, no gentle first wave. The very first wave arrived like a monster and swept 80 houses clean away. Chieko found herself in the water.
My feet reached the sea bottom. I kicked the sea bottom and came up to the surface. But it was pitch dark, and I could not see anything. I realized I must have been up between the waves. Then, with a roaring sound, I was pushed down into the water again.
8 minutes later, the second and last wave arrived. It swept around the island and in places reached a height of 30 meters. Then it became again the beautiful, calm summer night it had been a bare 12 minutes before. Chieko struggled to keep afloat in the sea that was now full of smashed houses and furniture. In the darkness, clinging to part of a sliding door, she found a young woman floating on a piece of roof.
Although I am an old woman, I tried to cheer her up by saying that we must find the others and could not afford to die. Then she started to cry. I wondered why she started to cry. She told me her baby she had been carrying on her back had slipped down into the water and disappeared.
People watched helplessly as overturned kerosene lamps started fires in their ruined houses. When the fire hydrants ran dry, the firemen didn't dare go down to the shore, not knowing that there would be no more waves. The fires burned unchecked for another 10 hours and destroyed most of what the waves had left standing. At last, Chieko was pulled from the sea. In the half-light of the next morning, she searched for her lost family. She found them at last, at the government building that had become a morgue.
We had to push our way through many corpses to find our own kin. It was really a scene from hell. I found my husband and my son and put their bodies in the coffins. But I didn't find my son's wife.
On Okoshiri Island today, they have built a wall to protect themselves from the sea. But the best protection from tsunamis is flight. Those who ran for their lives the moment they felt the earthquake were saved. But the dream of millions in the earthquake zones of the world is a way to predict and so protect themselves and their children from the source of the tsunami's power, the earthquake itself. In January 1995, a devastating earthquake rocked Kobe in Japan. It struck without warning just before dawn, and 5,000 people died. Looking back, people began to wonder if the earthquake could have been predicted. For it seems the earth and its creatures had been foretelling what was to come, if only the people of Kobe had been listening.
Normally, sea lions swim in an anti-clockwise circle. On Saturday morning, they were behaving oddly, quite abnormally. Jumping out of the water, going round and round clockwise. This isn't usual. So we were chatting about it and joking that this could be an omen of an earthquake.
Down at the quay, fishermen swapped tales of massive catches of fish in unexpected places just before the earthquake. Altogether, 1,519 stories were collected of inexplicable, peculiar behavior of birds, animals, and fish in the days and hours before the earthquake.
It seems that fish or animals knew something unusual was happening. Something unusual was happening at the bottom of the sea. The only people who didn't sense anything were the humans.
The message was also in the water. Kobe is famous for its pure well water. They use it to make sake. When chemists analyzed water bottled in the months before the earthquake, they found significant changes in its chemical content. The earth was whispering, but no one had been listening. Across the Pacific is another earthquake country, California. Here, some people are only too ready to believe that we should listen to the earth.
We have the technology to feed the world.
USGS. Hi, Linda. This is Nancy, one of your earthquake predictors, and I got that earthquake feeling twice this morning.
At the United States Geological Survey, Linda Curtis patiently logs the calls from those who believe they can tune in to messages from the Earth.
Okay, bye-bye.
We receive lots of calls. For example, here's one from a woman who has a Japanese lovefish named Richter. He likes to jump out of his aquarium right before earthquakes. Another guy whose house creaks before earthquakes. Kathleen Firmidal from Santa Monica. She gets headaches.
It was June 1992. I remember this very strong sensation of the ground moving back and forth. I would get electric shocks going through my body. This was all very subtle. Then it became quite severe. And I had the sensation that the ground was moving. And I thought to myself, maybe there's going to be an earthquake. And I felt rather foolish when I said this because I don't predict earthquakes. Very early the next morning, the Landers earthquake hit.
Holy shit! Oh my God! What happened to the telephone? Destroyed!
His house tossed around like a toy.
Go, go, go! Come on!
And down the road, buckled and split and heaved up the height of a man.
Get it, man! Shit! Come! Oh, shit!
And both within a few miles of the dreaded San Andreas Fault.
Rock and roll!
I told my husband, Steve, I said, look at the ground, it's rolling. And he said, forget the ground, look at the house. And the house was actually raising up, twisting and contorting and coming back down, and it did it several times.
Ali Roden lives within a mile of the San Andreas Fault. It dominates her landscape and her life. She's one of dozens of people who call themselves earthquake sensitives. The day her house was twisted off its foundations was also the day she made the connection between all the mysterious ailments from which she suffers and earthquakes around the world.
The biggest symptom I usually have is migraines. And depending on where the migraine is located on my head, a lot of times will give me the location. The intensity of the pain in the head will give me an approximate magnitude. It's kind of a cursed gift. If I had my choice, I wouldn't want to feel this way. There's other times when it feels good that I know that one day maybe I'll get well enough or good enough at what I'm doing to maybe help save lives or help change the way people perceive things.
One country in the world takes all aspects of earthquake prediction seriously: China. For 2,000 years, since they invented this seismoscope, the Chinese have been trying to understand earthquakes. Today, the most powerful computer technology is used to record and analyze every twitch and breath of the earth. A watchful army of observers and scientists, 10,000 strong, is always at work. Nothing is too unlikely to ignore. Even the tweets of budgerigars, the comings and goings of doves, are deemed worthy of study. For the Chinese believe that the earth gives all kinds of messages before an earthquake. Sometimes the pattern of those messages is so clear that a precise prediction can be made and lives saved. The most dramatic prediction was in 1973 in Haichong. Scientists were monitoring every aspect of the Earth's behavior. Dozens of abnormalities recorded pointed clearly to an impending earthquake. At 10:30, the warning was issued, and the great evacuation began. 9 hours later, the Haichong earthquake struck. Buildings crumbled, but few people died. China believed it was the beginning of a new era. But for earthquake scientists, the name of Haichong will be forever linked with the name of this city, Tangshan. In the 1970s, 1 million people lived in this prosperous industrial region. In the grand new era of earthquake prediction, they felt secure. But unknown to the people here, monitors all over northeastern China were picking up hints that something was happening underground again. This time, unlike Haichong, there was no pattern. If the Earth was giving China a message, that message wasn't clear. The scientists were uneasy, but there was not enough information to issue a useful warning. There could be no evacuation. For the people of Tangshan, there would be no happy ending. That day in July 1976, Yang Yu, a composer, moved with his family to a new house. The new home was a privilege, a reward for his wife's excellence as a teacher. It was 3:42 in the morning. Directly below the city, just 8 miles down, something gave.
Suddenly, I heard coming from far, far away a deep rumbling, and within a few seconds, it got bigger and bigger. After blowing from far away, after a couple of seconds, the deep rumbling kept coming, and then a sudden noise. There was this kind of noise. The sound of it was like something scratching the sky. It was a kind of very sharp noise, sharp and tinkling noise. One explosion. I felt the whole house was collapsing. Among the cries, I heard my son's cries. We were sleeping in the same bed. I couldn't understand why the sound was coming from so far away, crying for me from far, far away. Daddy, Daddy, help me. And my daughter, she was even younger, only 3 years old. She was crying very hoarsely, Daddy, Daddy. I couldn't hear their mother's sound. I did not know where she was. I said, Son, where is Mummy? My son said, Mummy's dead. He knew that his mother was dead. 3 of them were squashed together. I told them, you wait for Daddy. Daddy will come right away. As soon as I get out, I'll come and save you. Then a few minutes later, there was an aftershock. It shook again. I was crushed even tighter. I almost fainted. But then I heard the sound of my son, one cry, Daddy. And then no more noise.
Young Yu's small son and daughter survived the earthquake. But, like most of the people who died that day, they died of their injuries waiting to be rescued.
This piece of music expresses my sense of loss for my family who were killed in the earthquake.
Tangshan was the greatest earthquake tragedy of the century. 250,000 people died here. For the survivors, their city was unrecognizable. 8 out of every 10 buildings had collapsed. There was no telephone, no telegraph, no passable roads, no railway. There was no running water and no electricity. 750,000 people were seriously injured or dying, and there was not a single hospital left standing. In the ruins of one of them lay a young miner, Wang Shubin, trapped on his bed in total darkness. Somewhere nearby was his wife, Jin Feng.
She cried out, Wang Shubin, where are you? I said, I'm trapped on the bed. She asked, are you crushed? I'm being pressed quite heavily. I asked her, are you crushed? I'm crushed below my waist. A big rock like this was on top of her.
Then began for Wang Shubin a blind journey that would last nearly 8 days. It took him 2 days to squeeze out from his bed, 2 more to inch his way through the dark rubble towards his wife. At last he found her, but he couldn't get past the last concrete block to her side. All he could touch were her fingertips.
My wife and I talked about our past, our love story. Finally, she went quiet. I called out with all my strength. I called to her as loudly as I could. Jin Feng, you can't die.
It was now the 4th day since the earthquake. In the darkness of the hospital ruins, Wang Shubin was now quite alone. They had been 19 in his ward. Many had survived the earthquake, but now all the voices had fallen silent.
The weather was very humid and hot. The dead bodies started to rot. Because it was a concrete floor, the rotting bodies oozed stinking liquid. I was crawling on my stomach through the filth. I had a lot of cuts on my body, and the smell was so strong it made my eyes water.
On the 8th day of his entombment, Wang Shubin heard voices just above his head. An army medical team was tearing at the ruins of the hospital, looking not for survivors, but for precious medicine. Through a tiny crack, they heard him cry out.
I'd been so lonely. I'd been searching in the dark for so long. Suddenly I was able to talk to people outside. I was very emotional. They were shouting, "What's your name?" I said, "My surname is Wang." "Mr. Wang, look and see how many people are still alive inside. I'm the only one left."
On August the 4th, 7 days and 15 hours after the earthquake, Wang Shubin emerged again into daylight. As he struggled to express his anguish and emotion, he cried out, "Long live the People's Liberation Army! Long live Chairman Mao!" He was reborn, but to a life of mourning, for the earthquake had taken from him not just his beloved wife, but 9 other members of his family. Today in Tangshan, this factory has been left exactly as it was, a memorial to the earthquake.
I am with my family, with the dead of Tangshan, 250,000 of them, my sisters and brothers, and many of my family I lost in a moment. I can only say from inside my heart, may they rest in peace. May they rest in peace.
More than 20 years later, Tangshan has risen again, a phoenix from the ruins. In China, they say that Tangshan people are stronger, braver, kinder. They have faced the worst together, and together they survived.
With Tangshan people, there's no such thing as you and me, like, this is your problem, this is my problem. There's only one problem, and we have to work together to beat it. All our hearts were melted into one.
Every year, at the festival of Qingming, Chinese people all over the world burn imitation money at the graves of their loved ones. But in Tangshan, there are no graves. Instead, people gather at every crossroads to remember those they lost that day. Tangshan is a painful memory for those who once believed science would have an easy victory over the Earth's mysteries. But since 1966, a quarter of all China's earthquakes have been successfully predicted. The dream that one day all earthquakes will be predicted still endures. In the search to understand and predict Earth's violence, some patterns are emerging. Historical earthquake cycles. In Japan, they have looked into their past and discovered a deeply worrying pattern to their biggest earthquakes. About every 122 years, as far back as records have been kept, a massive earthquake has hit the most densely populated and industrially important part of Japan. They are so sure that the next one is coming that they have even given it a name. The impending Tokai earthquake. As people tie their fortunes to the wire, they cannot know exactly when Tokai will happen. They only know it is already overdue. When the Tokai earthquake happens, the Japanese government estimates that the earthquake and tsunami together will kill more than 11,000 people and destroy 500,000 buildings. The Tokai earthquake would not just be a Japanese disaster. Its effect would ripple like a tsunami around the world.
If there is a major earthquake here, it could cost upwards of $1 trillion. And the effect of this is going to be higher interest rates, higher unemployment, perhaps even a world recession.
With every day that passes, this economic and human catastrophe comes closer.
The fact is that the longer it waits before it finally happens, the bigger it's going to be. It's rather like bending down a ruler on the edge of a desk. The more you pull it down, finally, when it bounces back up, the larger will be that amount of shaking.
The Tokai earthquake will happen. It's just a matter of when. The Earthquake Prediction Committee has the enormous responsibility of trying to predict when that will be. The 6 wise men, as the committee is called, meet regularly. The debate is behind closed doors. Professor Megumi is in the chair. The committee is putting all its faith in technology. Thousands of sensors continuously record the Earth's heartbeat around Tokai. A dense network of satellite information receivers measures movements in the Earth's crust to a fraction of a centimeter. They expect, like the Chinese, to spot anomalies in the Earth's behavior in time to issue a warning 2 days before the earthquake strikes. At last, Professor Megumi emerges to tell the waiting pressmen that for today at least, the committee thinks Tokai is still safe.
Although we cannot make any definitive comments at the moment, various abnormal phenomena have been observed in the Tokai region. If we continue cautious, intensive monitoring, it is highly possible to predict it.
No one knows if the Earthquake Prediction Committee will be successful, or if Japan is just a short while away from a second Tangshan. On the San Andreas Fault in California, there's another place where they are hoping technology will help them predict the next earthquake. People here call Parkfield the earthquake capital of the world. For ever since the first settlers reached this valley in the 1850s, it has had regular earthquakes. Thinking they would catch the next one in the act, the United States Geological Survey began daily monitoring of the fault. According to the pattern, the next earthquake was due. That was 14 years ago, and they're still waiting.
I've been watching the movement on the San Andreas Fault as it passes through Parkfield. And I take measurements along 14 kilometers of the fault, and I just watch to see how much it's moving. And so what we're trying to do is look for something different. And what we hope to see before an earthquake is some precursory information that will tell us, hey, the earthquake's coming. And Parkfield is just a place where nature said, hey, we're going to give you an earthquake about every 22 years. And so we got all set up for the 22-year pattern, and then nature changed it a little bit, but we're still watching and waiting and hoping that something will happen here so that we can study it.
What we're really trying to do is understand earthquakes. When we understand earthquakes sufficiently, if we ever do, then we will predict them. The hard part about studying earthquakes is that they come so infrequently. If you wanted to build a real scientific data set with dozens of earthquakes, You'd have to live for thousands of years and make good measurements.
A single human life passes in but a moment of Earth's time. Even the combined memories of many generations do not always give due warning of what the Earth can do. In the shadow of the Cascadia mountain range, the people of Seattle do not expect big earthquakes. But the written history of this place only goes back 200 years. Local Indian legends tell of a great shaking and the seas withdrawing, and then rushing in to drown their villages, all on a cold winter's night. No one knows how old or how true these stories are. For the last 10 years, a team of earthquake detectives on both sides of the Pacific have been piecing together the history of this area. Geologist Brian Atwater has uncovered unsettling evidence of earthquakes followed by tsunamis. And again, a pattern. It seems the Cascadia Fault ruptures about once every 300 years. Preserved in the tree ring history of these dead cedar trees is the date of the most recent Cascadia earthquake.
These trees were victims of an earthquake. We want to know to the nearest year and maybe even the season if we can from the tree rings, the annual rings of the trees, when that earthquake happened.
6,000 miles away in Japan, Kenji Satake, too, is searching for clues to when the last earthquake happened on the Cascadia Fault. For an earthquake there will have its echo right round the Pacific, wherever tsunamis have come ashore.
In this particular document here, in the local government record, it says a tsunami came on the dawn of 28th of January 1700, and tsunami inundated the harbors and damaged the government storage house.
Kenji is not a historian. He is a tsunami expert. And it is because tsunamis travel through the ocean at a predictable speed, he could calculate from these records not just the date, but even the time for the last Cascadia earthquake.
That means the earthquake must have occurred at around 9 o'clock of January 26, 1700.
A cold winter's night, just as the Indian stories had said.
When I counted rings out to the bark and found that the outer ring was a complete ring in 1699, I was kind of awestruck.
For the confirmation of the date also brought confirmation of something much more unsettling than Kenji's work had discovered. That was the size the Cascadia earthquake must have been to have caused a 6-foot tsunami in Japan.
We found that earthquake must be magnitude 9, which is very great earthquake.
An earthquake 100 times larger than the earthquake that devastated Kobe. When Cascadia goes again, as it will sometime, what will happen will be unlike anything North America has ever seen. A stretch of the Pacific coast 700 miles long by 100 miles wide will be shaken for many minutes, bringing buildings tumbling down from Canada to California. Within minutes, tsunamis 40 feet high will be sweeping ashore. Within hours, the waves will be bringing devastation to communities all round the Pacific. It is impossible to calculate when that day will come. But the pattern suggests the cycle is about every 300 years. And the last one was almost exactly 300 years ago. The more we understand our Earth, the more dangerous a place it seems to be. The tragedies of our century are nothing compared to the great geological events of the past. When Mount Manzama blew itself up and Crater Lake was formed 10,000 years ago, much of North America was blanketed in ash. The great eruptions of prehistory changed the climate. Some have even suggested they killed off the dinosaurs. Earth's story has been one of constant flux for close on 5,000 million years. We humans have been witnesses to only a fraction of its history. We can only guess at what its future, and ours, may be. To learn more about our savage Earth, a booklet is available. Send 2 first-class stamps to Savage Earth, P.O. Box 525, Manchester M60 3JF.
Next Tuesday here on Anglia, Mel Gibson and Danny Glover star in the movie Lethal Weapon. That's next Tuesday, 10:40.